Thank you all for joining us here at I-80 Sports, where today it's time to check up on where all the NHL teams are now that we're almost a quarter of the way through the season, as well as other news and notes around the NHL. Guys, thanks again for joining us here at I-80 Sports. Thank you all for joining us here again at I-80 Sports. Make sure that you check out our website down below, i80sports.com, for all of our NHL content, as well as our NFL, MLS, NCAA football, and NBA content as well. And hey, 'tis the season of giving. While you're there, hit up our shop, get yourself a t-shirt as low as $8. And if you're on Twitter, make sure you follow us down below at I80_SportsNHL. And if you're following us already, thank you guys so much, because we greatly value all of your support. And hey, if you're joining us here on YouTube, make sure that if you're not on YouTube, if you're on our website or elsewhere, make sure to check out our YouTube channel, youtube.com/I80 Sports. And while you're there, drop a subscribe and like and comment on this video. Let us know what you guys think. I'm Brian. He's Tom. Tom, how you doing this week?
Doing well. And believe it or not, we are a quarter of a way through the season. And, we have some stories. We have some teams that are surprising, some teams that are disappointing, some teams that just tied a game on a power play in the middle of the second period, a team that I particularly like. But let's just get right to it.
Heck yeah. And right off the bat, guys, I'm sorry that if you've been waiting for our most recent video, well, things have been kind of busy for me in the past week, so that's kind of what delayed this past episode. But we're back in full force. And Tom,
congratulations. Salud, man. Salud.
Heck yeah. I'm still on cloud 9 at this point, so not much else to say in terms of that regard. I'm a very, very happy man. But we're here to talk about the NHL right now. So as always, guys, it's time to start with the news. Let's hit up the traffic report.
The I-80 Sports Traffic Report, where you can find all your news and notes from the week.
Hitting up some news and notes around the NHL this week, and starting off with a pretty interesting news story here. Gary Bettman and the rest of the NHL is exploring the possibility of bringing back a team in Quebec City, of course in Canada, whether it be the Quebec Nordiques or otherwise. So first and foremost, this seems like quite a big rumor. It does seem, like a lot of speculation going on here. Take this with a big grain of salt, of course, but it's impossible not to talk about this. So Tom, let's start with you. Would it be a good idea to bring back, whether it's the Quebec Nordiques or just bringing back a team to Quebec City?
You know what? I think it would be a good idea. I think it's always good to have more teams in Canada. You know what? I said about Bettman a few weeks ago, this Sunbelt experiment, with the exception of maybe Dallas and Tampa, has failed. I'm sorry. It's failed. Nashville, obviously, too. I don't even know if you consider Nashville a Sunbelt city, though. I mean, Nashville's, almost the Midwest. And granted, right now, you can talk about Carolina. Carolina's doing well now. But all the years Carolina wasn't doing well, I mean, come on. You're a Devil fan. I'm a Ranger fan. You would watch the away games. You would see more Ranger and Devil fans in the stands down there than you would see Carolina fans. Even in the finals against Detroit in 2002, you had Red Wings fans celebrating every time Brett Hull would pot a goal against them. So, yeah, Carolina's doing great now, but will it be sustained long term? And that's a question that I don't know. But here's what I'm saying as far as Quebec is concerned. This is not going to be an expansion. This is going to be a relocation. And when it comes to relocation, right now, all signs down in Arizona with their arena problems and them not having anywhere to go is maybe leading me to believe that they might be heading up to the northernmost reaches of the St. Lawrence River next year, into Quebec City, into the new Videotron Center, which is a beautiful arena from what I've seen, and could use an NHL team in there. Things will be a little bit different this time. The last time, the league wasn't financially stable last time. And let me just put it at this. If you look at the history of the National Hockey League from the years 1967 to the year 1982, the league almost quadrupled in size over those years. That's like unprecedented for any sport. So, I mean, you have teams coming in that era and there's no cap, there's no revenue sharing. You have to go to the ends of the earth to find players. At the time, you had the Iron Curtain falling. You had some players coming from Europe. Some could come, some couldn't. It was just, it was a mess. It was like the wild, wild west out there. I feel like around this time, you're obviously not an expansion team. You're going to relocate a team with staff, a team with personnel, a team with a minor league team, and a team that we've spoken about with a lot of draft picks in the upcoming years, which will set them up for success, which will bring back the old battle of the St. Lawrence River. I mean, if you ever want to see those old battles, look up the Good Friday Massacre back in 1984 when the Habs and the Nordiques basically had a bench clearing brawl, you know. It's a little different this time. It's not going to be, you have a salary cap, you have revenue sharing, and you don't have these crazy expansions where these scouts have to go to the ends of the earth to find players. Excuse me. Right now, things are a little more stable. So I think it would be great for the game. The real question is, will it happen? Right now, it's all speculation. We don't know. I would love to see it. I guess the team that it would hurt the most, and call me crazy for this, is, believe it or not, the Detroit Red Wings. Because if the Coyotes move into the East, they'll have to probably play the Atlantic Division. That would make the most sense, right? So who would have to move back west? The answer is as simple as the Detroit Red Wings, a team that was begging and pleading to move to the East for many, many years because they said the travel was ridiculous. They hated the travel. They hated playing in the West. Well, if this does indeed happen, the Detroit Red Wings will be going back to the Western Conference, if you ask me. I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Yeah, all really good thoughts there when it comes to the potential of bringing a team back to Quebec. And Tom brings up the really interesting point that, you know, in this case, it's really no secret. The team that would more than likely be relocating is the Arizona Coyotes. I mean, look over the past year with their deficiencies as an organization, with currently not knowing if they're even going to be in Glendale this upcoming year. Now, the possibility of moving back to Phoenix is still on the table, but more than likely it's looking more and more like the Arizona Coyotes are going to be moving to a different state or even different country in this case. Now, for me, do I think that bringing a team back to Quebec would be great? I'm indifferent. And it's weird for me because I look at it from another flip of the coin of, in a weird way, of kind of like realism, in the sense that it's great for Canada to get another hockey team. It's always great for Canada to be well supported within the NHL. But Quebec City really did not show a lot of love to the Nordiques when they were in town last time. What's different this time around? Realistically, there's not a lot different. Yes, the last time that the NHL brought back a Canadian team, the Winnipeg Jets, it's been wildly successful. Winnipeg has had a lot of support since moving back in the early 2010s. There's no denying that whatsoever. Could it happen with Quebec City? Absolutely, it could. It would be amazing if it could. But that being said, I just feel like there are a few other locations, whether it's in Canada or whether it's in the States, that may be better. But more on that thought later when we get to our question of the day. So we can definitely duke it out then, Tom, in that regard. Moving right along to our next piece of news story. In our last video, we told you guys that we were going to, talk about this pretty heavily. So here we go. The Anaheim Ducks, now former GM Bob Murray, resigned and has entered alcohol treatment. And the Ducks previously had placed him on leave prior to the resignation due to, quote, toxic behavior and verbal abuse. So, Tom, this is probably going to be an easy answer for you. Was this the right move on all sides, whether for Bob Murray and for the Anaheim Ducks?
Yes, it was. And I'm going to toss the hockey part of it out here. The hockey part of it doesn't matter. I don't care what he did as a GM. I don't care who he drafted. I don't care who he traded for. I don't really care who he brought in. A toxic environment is something that I've been in, whether it's been in a workplace, whether it's been within a hockey team. It's a blatant abuse of power, what he did. Basically said, I'm the GM of this hockey club, and I can come in and act and treat people however I want, and there's nothing they can do about it. There's no room for that in the world today. My whole life, I have everybody in the world telling me, personal standpoint, that basically your boss can talk to you however you want, and you have to deal with it. And that is a bunch of BS. It's a bunch of BS. I don't care, coach, GM, I don't care who you are. You're in a leadership position. You treat your employees and those under you with respect. I had people under me in my former job. I treated everybody equally. I treated everybody nice. I treated everybody respectfully. I never once let a title go to my head. And that's exactly what Bob Murray did. And the reason why, believe it or not, and I don't want to get too personal here, why I didn't play high school hockey my senior year was because my coach was loved to abuse his power with everybody. And after the first practice, I said, you know something? The hell with you and the hell with this. I'm out of here. So you know what? It hits home for me a little bit. And I'm sorry. I don't mean to get emotional and I don't mean to get upset with this. But it's a bunch of BS the way he acted towards those people. And he doesn't deserve to have his job anymore. And I hope he doesn't get another job in the league. And I'm going to leave it at that.
Some very powerful words there. And I agree. This is the right move by the Ducks, even going beyond just a hockey standpoint. Going beyond it, I'm happy he's getting the help he needs, but he owes the entire Ducks organization a massive apology for his blatant mistreatment of employees, blatant mistreatment of individuals within the Anaheim Ducks organization. You know, you can have your personal demons. That's true. And trying to, manage your life with those personal demons is sometimes almost impossible. But at the same time, it does not necessarily excuse the toxic environment that Bob Murray created amongst the Anaheim Ducks. Now, looking from a hockey standpoint of things, sure, drafting Trevor Zegras and Jamie Drysdale have helped, but those two players fell right on his lap. And other than those two players in recent memory, there hasn't been that many other players that have really contributed at such a high level for the Anaheim Ducks. Beyond that, I'm happy he's getting the help he needs. Good luck to him in treatment, but I don't know. I don't know where it necessarily goes from here for the Anaheim Ducks. Hopefully onward and upward, and the Anaheim Ducks are also performing really, really well as of late. And we'll just go from there. Moving right along in the news. So the Pittsburgh Penguins are for sale. It seems that an ownership group from the Boston Red Sox Fenway Sports Group is set to purchase the Pittsburgh Penguins from Mario Lemieux and Ron Hextall. Tom, right off the bat here, good or bad for the Pittsburgh Penguins?
I mean, maybe bad for right now because it may very well turn into, I don't know about Crosby ever going anywhere. And I've said it before, I think Crosby retires a Penguin. But the fact is that Mario Lemieux will no longer be the majority owner of the team. It will be Fenway Sports Group, John Henry and his crew. Lemieux will still remain a minority. He'll still have a minority stake in the team. They're not selling the team completely under Mario Lemieux. I don't know how much of a stake he'll own, but I don't think he's going to have the final say in decisions anymore. I remember what I said last year. We'll harken back to an episode way back in February of last year, or well, not of last year, of this year, but back in February. We'll just say that. We'll say it like that. Brian Burke was brought in to be the president of the team. Brian Burke has been known when he goes into teams to really tear things down and rebuild it in his own way. Now, like I said, Sidney Crosby's a treasure in Pittsburgh. He's not going anywhere. But don't be surprised if Malkin and Letang do indeed get moved once this sale has been finalized. I just think that with the Penguins, you can't, as a Ranger fan, believe me, I know it firsthand, you can't hold on to your glory years forever. Players get older. The league changes. The game changes. You won 3 Stanley Cups. And that's 3 more than a lot of other teams have won in the past few years. It's been a good run, but at the same time, the Penguins right now look like they're faltering a little bit. And it may very well be time to start tearing it apart and to start looking ahead to the future. It's something they seem to have to not do in the past. They got Lemieux, in the 80s they got Lemieux, and the Lemieux-Yager train basically got them 17 years of good hockey. Well, not 17 years. I'm not going to say that. It got them about 10 good years from 91 to 01. And then after that, they kept relying on Mario Lemieux. They kept, relying on Mario Lemieux to sell tickets, but the team wasn't any good. And eventually they had to fold it up for Sidney Crosby or whatnot. Well, this time, I guess they're being a little more progressive. So I think right now it's bad because they'll have to start saying goodbye to the stars that they knew for the last 15 or so years. But in the long run, it's going to be good. They'll be able to rebuild the team and hopefully be back in contention within the next few years.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to have a bit of an honest and controversial take here, and well, Pittsburgh fans can bite my head off all you want, but whatever. It's still going to be my opinion. I think this is actually going to be a very good thing for the Pittsburgh Penguins, and it's going to help be the catalyst to the rebuild that probably needs to happen in a short amount of time. Yes, they're playing pretty good hockey right now, but that stuff is going to hit the fan very soon. And when you have an ownership group like Mario Lemieux and Ron Hextall that is reluctant to trade some names because of nostalgia, that's when a new group needs to come in and break up the boys band and break up the boys club. And it sucks sometimes. Tom had mentioned that most likely it leads to Evgeny Malkin getting traded and Chris Letang getting traded. But you know what?
Well, remember, Hextall's the GM, but Brian Burke's the president of hockey operations. So,
right.
At the end of the day, Brian Burke, I think, will still have the final say.
Right. But that's also why I think this is the right call, because you get an ownership group that doesn't have rose-colored glasses on in this regard. And, in this regard, if you end up trading Evgeny Malkin and Chris Letang, I promise the Yinzers will heal. I promise they will all feel better at some point. They're going to be butthurt for a little while, but Preparation H heals many wounds such as that. But moving right along, it's time to finally move on from the news, and it's time to, as always, talk about what we're really here for this video. It's time to pump the brakes.
Not so fast. It's time to pump the brakes.
It's crazy to think, but we're already a quarter of the way through the NHL season. So it's time to see who's doing well and who's doing poorly and who's turning heads in some good ways and not so good ways. So first things first, let's start by reading off the standings right now. In the Eastern Conference, we're looking at the Atlantic Division first. Going right down in the top 8, we've got the Florida Panthers in the lead in the division. Next, the Toronto Maple Leafs, then the Tampa Bay Lightning, and surprisingly, the Detroit Red Wings taking the 4th spot right now. Rounding out the rest of that conference, starting at number 5 is the Boston Bruins. Then at number 6, the Buffalo Sabres, and number 7, the Montreal Canadiens, and lastly, pulling up the rear in last, the Ottawa Senators. Moving on to the Metropolitan Division, the most competitive division by far, something I'll get to in a little while. We've got the Carolina Hurricane in first, the Washington Capitals in second, the New York Rangers in third. Tied for 4th right now is the Philadelphia Flyers and New Jersey Devils, and then tied in 5th place, I guess in this case 6th place respectively, the Columbus Blue Jackets and the Pittsburgh Penguins. And then pulling up the rear surprisingly here is the New York Islanders. And one thing that should be mentioned, there is only a 10-point difference between the 1st place team and the 7th place team right now. That is bonkers. Just a few games catches any team up in that division real quick. Moving on to the Western Conference, starting with the Central Division, we've got the Minnesota Wild tied for the lead with the Winnipeg Jets. In third right now is the St. Louis Blues. In 4th, the Nashville Predators. In 5th, the Colorado Avalanche. Pretty surprising here. Next, in 6th place, the Dallas Stars. In 7th place, the Chicago Blackhawks. I'll be happy when the day comes that I don't have to talk about the Chicago Blackhawks anymore, but alas, that day is not today. And pulling up the rear, the Arizona Coyotes. Finally, in the Pacific Division, in 1st place, we've got the Edmonton Oilers. In 2nd place, the Calgary Flames. In 3rd, surprisingly, the Anaheim Ducks. In 4th, the Vegas Golden Knights. Next, in 5th place, the Los Angeles Kings. In 6th place, the San Jose Sharks. In 7th place, the Vancouver Canucks. And in last place, the newest team in the NHL, the Seattle Kraken. So quite a lot there to digest. First things first, let's talk about who we think is doing the best right now. So Tom, who do you feel is the best team in the league right now?
I got to go with the Florida Panthers here. I know Carolina's been playing well, but the Panthers just seem to keep trudging along despite losing Joel Quenneville. And remember, they're in a division with 2 very good teams in the Boston Bruins and defending champions Tampa Bay Lightning. And now you also have the Toronto Maple Leafs starting to pick up some steam. So obviously it's still early, but I really like what they're doing so far. Will they sustain it? I really don't know. But so far I like them. Obviously they had 2 bad losses to the Rangers and the Devils, but they seem to have picked it up afterwards. So right now I got to go with the Florida Panthers.
And that's a perfectly fine choice. For me, it's a toss-up between both the Florida Panthers and the Carolina Hurricane. But I got to be honest, I'm going to go and say Carolina right now because they have been more dominant, and the only 2 losses they've suffered have been pretty close. They really haven't, played any games that have gotten out of control. That being said, on the flip side, Florida has suffered some bad losses to New Jersey and to the New York Rangers, and those 2 losses have me concerned about the longevity of this team going forward, just because of the coaching change and the abrupt coaching change, that is, and even more so now that their best player, Alexander Barkov, is week to week now, and it's not known when he's going to return just yet. So that's what has me a little bit worried going forward and a little bit cautious about the Florida Panthers. That being said, they're still an utterly fantastic team. They really are. But Carolina, they've just impressed me a little bit more. So we've talked about the best. So that being said, Tom, who do you think is the worst team in the NHL right now?
I mean, it's obvious the for sale sign looking for a new home, Arizona Coyotes, obviously. But we obviously know why they're that bad. We know what they're trying to do. Another team that we've spoken about numerous times, the Montreal Canadiens. Well, it's not surprising me that they're that bad. I didn't think they would be good. Don't get me wrong. But I also didn't think they'd be this bad either.
No, and there's not many more miserable teams out in the NHL right now than the Arizona Coyotes. Maybe you could mention, the Seattle Kraken, or you could mention the Ottawa Senators. But I think Arizona might have it just a little bit worse. When you only have won 3 out of your past 18 games, that's pretty bad. And also to lose 13 of those games in regulation, that's also pretty bad. So to me, it's got to be the Arizona Coyotes. Are we surprised? No. Are they that bad? Yeah, they are. So the rebuild continues in Arizona, and well, at this point, start placing your bets on when they begin the fire sale. Could be as early as December. Who knows? Could be interesting to watch. Next, moving on to some surprising teams so far, like who've been turning heads in a really positive way right now. We can talk about multiple teams here. Tom, who in your mind has, been some teams turning heads lately?
I mean, isn't it obvious?
Oh, no.
It's my favorite team. It's the Rangers.
Of course.
Everywhere Gerard Gallant goes, he turns to gold. Now, to tell you the truth, I like what they're doing. I really do. I just kind of felt like this was to be expected, with what they've been trying to do over the last few years. Eventually, things were going to come full circle. I don't think they're there yet. There's still some work to be done. But I do like how they're playing. Don't get me wrong. But I'm also not surprised. This is kind of what I expected out of them. If they were on the top of the league, like Florida and Carolina, I'd be like, wow. If they were on the bottom of the league, like Arizona, I'd be wanting to put my fist through a wall. But they're neither. This is what I expected out of them. One team I really like what they're doing. I like Anaheim. I don't think anybody thought this is where they would be this early. 2 really good former USA World Junior stalwarts, and Trevor Zegras and Troy Terry, getting a lot of good things done. And Ryan Getzlaf, what a start he has had. Here's the thing with Getzlaf. Number 1, Getzlaf was drafted in 2003 and got hosed by my favorite team, because I heard that on Cam and Strick the other day, and they drafted Hugh Jessamine instead of him. There's your history lesson for the day. But let's I'm going to get a little more serious now. To tell you the truth, if Anaheim cannot sustain this, but Getzlaf does sustain his play, I think by the end of February, Getzlaf will be wearing the uniform of another team. I think if Getzlaf is playing this well on a 1-year deal and a contender really needs a center, I just can't see Getzlaf finishing this year out in Anaheim. And to reference that same interview on Cam and Strick again, Getzlaf said, yeah, I signed for the year there, but I don't know if I'll finish the year in Anaheim. I may, if the situation is right and they want to trade me if we're not doing well, I may very well take it to try and win one more Stanley Cup. Getzlaf has gone and said that. Another team I like what they're doing. I like what the Calgary Flames are doing. Obviously, the Flames were really good 2 years ago, finishing at the top of the Western Conference. They're giving Edmonton a little run for their money there. We have a old school Battle of Alberta at the top of the Pacific Division. Back in the day, it was a Smythe Division. It's like the 80s all over again. Wayne Gretzky versus Doug Gilmour. Mark Messier versus Joe Nieuwendyk. Al McInnes versus Paul Coffey. It's like back then. So it's good to see the Battle of Alberta. It's good to see competitive hockey between those two teams again. Because you got to remember, despite the little runs both went on in the mid-2000s, those were kind of Cinderella runs. It's nice to see both of those teams playing contending, top-notch hockey again and them really jawing at each other. Edmonton, it was expected. Calgary, a little bit of a surprise.
Yeah, I'm going to highlight a few teams here, and there's going to be a trend with these, and I'll see if you pick up on the trend eventually for the viewers out there. So I've got a couple teams. Anaheim, as Tom mentioned before, is probably the most surprising team to me. I mean, Trevor Zegras is leading the charge, and the Ducks have been on fire with his potent play lately. Troy Terry has also been on another level lately with a team leading 22 points so far. Really, really good. Plus, Ryan Getzlaf contributing 18 assists so far is huge for the leader of this team. And to echo Tom's point, could just be an audition for a potential playoff team. But that being said, I mean, if Anaheim sustains this, which who knows if it's likely or not, if they sustain this, maybe they're more likely to hold on to Ryan Getzlaf for a potential playoff run. So that way they can actually have their rightful captain with them for that. Another surprise team for me, which, shout out to Bex out on Twitter on this one. The Detroit Red Wings. I mean, what more can be said about the play of rookies Lucas Raymond and Moritz Seider? They're both playing unbelievably well, with Seider even getting Norris Trophy whispers right now for best defenseman. So the trend here is rookies who are coming in and making a significant difference to a team that otherwise was thought to be maybe a bottom dweller this year. So let's mention another team like that. And, well, isn't it obvious? The New Jersey Devils. In this case, we're talking about Dawson Mercer and how he has been filling in quite well in Jack Hughes' absence. The Devils overall was fantastic before Hughes got hurt, and Hughes himself was playing on another level as well. He was playing, some really, really exciting hockey and playing, among one of the more elite styles in the league. So I'll be really curious to see how much better this team gets when he returns in just a few short weeks. Surprisingly, with this team right now, Dawson Mercer is tied for the team lead in points, and who knows, maybe by year's end could be getting some Calder whispers. The last surprise team comes from the same division, and that's the Columbus Blue Jackets. I think the not so surprising thing in the NHL so far is how good and competitive the Metropolitan Division is. The 7th place Pittsburgh Penguins are 1 point out from 4th place in the Metropolitan Division. From 7th place to 4th place, 1 point separates that. That is how tight this Metropolitan Division is, but that's not the surprising thing. What's surprising is the Columbus Blue Jackets are in that same hunt. They're tied right now with the Pittsburgh Penguins in terms of points. Something that we did not believe was actually going to happen. This team is working really well together with guys like, new captain Boone Jenner, Jakub Voracek, and Oliver Bjorkstrand performing quite well for the team so far. They have been utterly fantastic. So those are surprising in a good way. Now it's time to talk about surprising in a, well, not so good way. It's time to talk about the most disappointing teams so far in the NHL. Tom, who's been the most disappointing, and who do you need to highlight here?
It's too easy here, and I hate to say it. It's a team that I didn't want to praise, but out of neutrality, I would praise over the last 2 years in the playoffs, and that's the New York Islanders. I don't know what's going on over there. I don't know if it's the jet lag. I don't know if it's the, opening on the road. I don't know if maybe their luck just ran out and now they're playing in a regular 82-game season and they just can't seem to figure out. I really don't know. But they just have not been good. I predicted them to finish the top of the division. A lot of people predicted them to be the Stanley Cup champions. I didn't think they would get that far. Thought they would win the division. Right now, they're not hacking it. They're not. And well, look who's in charge there. Lou Lamoriello. And what has Lou Lamoriello not been a stranger to doing over the years? What does Lou Lamoriello do when things aren't going too good? Lou Lamoriello likes to fire coaches. Like George Steinbrenner used to like to fire Billy Martin. I'm not a Yankee fan, but all you Yankee fans out there, I'm sure you know that one. Barry Trotz is a good coach. But does it come to a point now in the future there, if around Christmas time they haven't righted the ship yet, does he give Barry Trotz his walking papers? The team over the offseason, I don't know really what they did to get better. They brought Zdeno Chara in. And the team itself was kind of a lucky team in a way. They were a team that would, try. They were like the 1960s Toronto Maple Leafs in a way, where they would just be good enough to make the playoffs and then go on a run. But with the hyper-competitive Metropolitan Division this year, and with an Atlantic Division that probably has 4 solid teams in it, are they even going to be able to get to that point? And remember 2 years ago, they were faltering when the pandemic hit and shut the league down. If the league played a full 82 in a normal year, would the Islanders have even made the playoffs? Because remember, they were trending downward. And remember last year, they were trending downward as well, but just nailed down that 4th spot just because the the Flyers were done and the Rangers pretty much, stunk up the joint at the end with all the controversy. But I just don't know this year if they're going to have those outside influences to help them out. They haven't been good so far. Another team that I've praised is the Vancouver Canucks. But the main difference with the Canucks and the Islanders is the Canucks are still a little bit of a younger team. They're still maybe trying to find their way a little bit. They had the unfortunate situation last year with only playing in the Canadian division. And say what you will. Say what you will about those Vancouver Canucks. But if you look at the Canadian division last year, the Vancouver Canucks had the worst travel schedule out of any team in that division. It's not my opinion. It's fact. It's fact. Every team had a team close to them. You had Montreal, Toronto, and Ottawa, which, while not as close as New York, Philadelphia, and D.C., are still fairly close to each other. Calgary and Edmonton are in the same province. Winnipeg isn't so far from those two. Vancouver's way out on the West Coast. They're a young team. It's still early. I do think, despite Vancouver's GM saying they're open for business, I do think Vancouver might still be able to figure it out. And I don't think Vancouver would move Elias Pettersson. I don't think they'd move Kurt Kolzlin. I don't think they'd move Hughes. I don't think they'd move Bo Horvat. Maybe they trade Brock Besser, but that's the only guy I could see leaving town if things get that bad. I do think Vancouver will be able to right this ship. You just got to give them some time. They're still a young team. That's it for me. I'm going to turn it over to you.
Sounds good. So I've actually got 4 teams that I need to highlight here, and 2 of which Tom already mentioned, but still going to dig a little bit deeper here. So the most disappointing to me thus far, as Tom already mentioned, the New York Islanders. Your leading point getter right now is Brock Nelson with 11 points. Plus, he scored 4 of his 9 goals in 1 game. It's not good. This team's not clicking at all. Your biggest moves over the offseason was to pick up Zdeno Chara and Zach Parise, which, if it was 2011, would be a fantastic move. But we're 10 years later. It's 2021. Those moves aren't going to cut it. This team is hurting bad for offense. That's the biggest thing. Defensively, they're not a bad team. Defensively, they're still playing good defensive hockey. They're still playing very well in net. Ilya Sorokin has been fine in net. And Sorokin's really kind of been picking up after the rough rookie season that he actually had. But Tom also mentioned an interesting point before. Who's your general manager for the New York Islanders? Lou Lamoriello. And I know Lou Lamoriello quite well as a Devils fan, because when things got tough and he didn't like how a team was performing, Tom hit it right on the head. One of the first things he would do, fire a coach. Absolutely. It's entirely possible that Barry Trotz, if things don't get corrected soon, he might be on the hot seat very, very quickly, which is unfortunate because he's one of the best coaches in the entire league. And he's the type of person I think would have an NHL job in 48 hours of being fired. But there's also something else that Lou Lamoriello is not afraid to do, and that's make a trade. Now, I'm wondering what type of move could be on the horizon if this team is still not clicking. Who's the person that he is going to look at and say, you know what, you're not working out here, and then ships him out of town? I'll be really, really curious to see if that's something that happens to get things going again. He was no stranger of doing that in New Jersey. Just see the Jason Arnott trade. Just see the Peter Sikora trade. There are a number of names that have come into town, left town, and some pretty surprising names. Heck, one forgotten trade that almost happened for the New Jersey Devils was Teemu Selanne was almost a New Jersey Devil back in the day until Teemu Selanne said, nah, I don't want to go to the East Coast. But that was a deal that almost happened. Look that up at some point. It's actually a really fascinating trade.
Almost became a Ranger in '95 as well.
True.
When they were gonna go for him instead of Zubov, but he said the same thing. He didn't want to go to New York.
Exactly. He just never wanted to play for the East Coast in general. But that being said, that's Lou's game. If a team's not clicking, find the cancer and get rid of it. And he is very good at doing that. Another disappointment is the Vancouver Canucks, as Tom mentioned. JT Miller has been one of the only bright spots on this team, with Miller leading in every category on this team so far: points, goals, assists. He's leading in all three of those categories right now. Otherwise, not so good. Elias Pettersson needs to get it going. 10 points in 18 games so far is just not going to cut it, especially since he just got paid to score goals and to get points. He needs to get it going. Vasily Podkolzin needs to get acclimated to the NHL game. I know he's having some growing pains, and I know it's a difficult transition from the Russian game to the NHL game, but 4 points in 16 games so far, not so good. Hopefully he gets the time to get it going, get things corrected, and, just in general, figures things out. But overall, with the Vancouver Canucks, especially after the year that they had and the talent that they have, they need to get it going. There's no way that the San Jose Sharks should be a better team in that division right now. There's just no way. Another disappointing team to me, the Colorado Avalanche. You're telling me that with the Colorado Avalanche, their success only comes from Nathan MacKinnon? I highly doubt that. Missing Nathan MacKinnon absolutely is huge. He's one of the best players in the entire NHL. But you've got other names. You just paid Gabriel Landeskog. Nazem Kadri, when not suspended, has been playing really, really well when he's not trying to murder somebody. But that can't be your only offense. Plus, as I said before, who are they missing dearly right now? Maybe it's the goaltender that they should have paid in the offseason, Philip Grubauer, instead of, panicking and trading for Darcy Kemper. Now, that being said, Kemper hasn't been that horrible that I believe. Actually, I'm kind of curious because I actually haven't really monitored his stats as of lately. I'm actually not going to stick my foot in my mouth on this one, and now all of a sudden I can't access it. That's not good. Oh, well, of course I can't access it when I need it. It's fine. I'll figure it out later and amend it later in the comments section. But still, disappointing by the Colorado Avalanche in general. There's no way they should be that bad. Lastly, the Seattle Kraken. My bold prediction of a fourth place Pacific finish for the Seattle Kraken is looking worse by the day. The problem with the Seattle Kraken, they have almost zero offensive potency, but we knew that was going to be a problem coming into the season after looking at that expansion draft and also looking at the moves they made in the offseason. I accepted this and felt that the above average defense and goaltending would keep them afloat. It seems that so far up to this point in the season, I was wrong. But there's still plenty of season left for all four teams that I've mentioned. There's a good chance that we might get to mid-season and we're talking about, hey, they righted the ship. We're looking good again. But you know what? We're just going to have to monitor and check as we go along. Now, moving on from our first quarter report, it's time to slowly start wrapping up this episode. Time to talk about some high performance.
Your I-80 Sports High Performance Players of the Week.
Not sure if it even played, but
no, it did.
Okay, I guess I just didn't see it on my end. That's fine. But we're talking about some players of the week right now. So, Tom, let's start with you. Who are some players that you want to highlight here?
Well, to tell you the truth, I actually want to piggyback off what you were saying about the Colorado Avalanche, believe it or not. The Colorado Avalanche have won their last 4 games in a row, and they've also played about 3 less games than just about everybody else. So say they won those 3 games, say whatever, they'd be right in the thick of it again. I am not worried about the Colorado Avalanche whatsoever, but I want to keep it on the Colorado Avalanche in terms of high-performance players of the week. And a player I want to highlight here is one of their top dogs. Obviously, McKinnon is out. We know that. There's nothing anybody can do about it. But a guy I want to highlight here is none other than Mikko Ranton. Mikko Ranton has 6 points in his last 4 games. Mikko Ranton's been a key cog in this little revival of the Colorado Avalanche. Like I said, I looked at the Avalanche early on. I saw the concerning record, but I didn't get worried at all. You as a New Jersey Devils fan, remember the year you lost to those same Avalanche in the finals. Remember, you guys didn't have such a good start either. But you got going around this time of year, around Thanksgiving time. Got things going, and, well, what happened? Ran the East most of the year, and we're 60 minutes away from clinching a second straight Stanley Cup on your home ice. Ray Bourque just pretty much said, no. I can't let that happen. I can't have that. I'm one of the greatest defensemen who ever played. I can't let the Devils win a second Stanley Cup because that means I can't have one. So we'll leave that alone. But I'm going to keep it in Finland. I'm going to keep it on the Finnish subject. But I'm going to go a little homer here. And I'm going to go with number 2 draft pick of 2019, number 24 in your programs, number 1 in your hearts. Kaapo Kakko has been on fire lately. 2-point night against the Devils last week, goal against the Habs, assist against the Leafs, and he had a goal against the Sabres tonight. 5 points in his last 4 games. You want to call this guy a bust? I said he wouldn't be a bust. I said he'd get it going. And you want to know what's different now that when he got it going as opposed to in the past? Who his coach is. In the past, under David Quinn, he'd get hot, and for no reason whatsoever, David Quinn would demote him or bench him. Kaapo Kakko gets hot now, and guess what Gerard Gallant did? Left him alone. Kept him where he was playing. And what did Kaapo Kakko do? Kept playing well. It's funny. A guy plays well, and you keep him where he is, and he keeps playing well. It's a crazy concept. And that's why David Quinn is sitting home right now without a job. That's why Gerard Gallant's behind the Rangers bench. So Kaapo Kakko as well. That's it for me for the week. Turn it over to you, Brian.
Fine. If you're going to be a homer, I get to be a homer too. So I'll do the same script. Former first-round pick last year, number 19 overall pick. He's number 18 in your programs, number 1 in your heart. It's, of course, Dawson Mercer. And I've got to highlight this because he has been one of the best finishers amongst current NHL rookies this season. Prior to Kaapo Kakko breaking out, he had more points than Alexis Lafreniere and Kaapo Kakko combined.
But he's a finisher, but he's not Finnish. So we're keeping it on kind of a Finnish subject.
Oh, of course. We're keeping continuity, of course. But he's been creating opportunities for himself, man. With 12 points in 16 games so far, it's entirely possible that Dawson Mercer could be in the discussion for the Calder at year's end. The next player I want to highlight here, Leon Dreissitel. A lot of people have had their focus on Connor McDavid and Alex Ovechkin so far this season, and for rightful purpose. Connor McDavid is a walking highlight reel. Alex Ovechkin is chasing history. But not many people have picked up on the fact that Leon Dreissitel is now currently scoring over a goal a game right now. He has 18 goals in 17 games, and he has 35 points total. That's 3 more points than his line mate, Connor McDavid. He currently leads the league in goals and points. So maybe we need to pay a little bit more attention and give a little bit more love to Leon Dreissitel. Just saying. Maybe instead of focusing on the Finnish people, we need to focus on the Germans for a little while.
I focus on the Germans every week when I watch Bayern Munich. No, I'm worried. Believe me. Going into the Olympics, that game against Germany is not going to be a pushover. He has himself a big game I'd worry, especially against the U.S. Maybe not so much against Canada. I think Canada will beat Germany. But if the U.S. lays an egg and Dreissitel has a day, I'd worry a little bit if I was a U.S. fan. And if I was the players on Team USA, I'd be sitting there. I would not be taking Germany lightly, especially him, because they're going to play him as much as they can play him.
Yeah, they're going to have to play him and Tim Stützle as much as they possibly can for them to be anywhere remotely successful in the Olympics this year. But who knows? Maybe in the next 4 years, Germany could actually be really, really surprising, because there's just more and more influx of German talent coming in by the year. And Leon Dreissitel is one of the first people that started that. Lastly, I wanted to highlight here Jack Campbell. What can you say of the Maple Leafs goaltender? He has been one of the best goalies in the entire NHL over the past 2 weeks now. 15 games started, 10 wins, a 1.66 goals against average, and a 944 save percentage. He leads the league in almost every goaltending category except for wins, which he is only one win away from the lead. He has been fantastic for the Maple Leafs this year, but look, I know that train's never late. The Maple Leafs are going to falter when it comes to the playoffs. We all know it's going to happen. All right, time to round out this episode, as always, with our question of the day, which, as we mentioned in the beginning of the episode, the question of the day is, does the NHL return to Quebec City? Tom, let's start with you. I have a feeling I know what your answer is.
Well, I want to kind of, how do I put it? I want to elaborate on something you said before. The reason Quebec had left in 95 had nothing to do with fan support. They had good support. The fans sold out the arena, and had everything to do with a weakening Canadian dollar, no revenue sharing, no salary cap, and basically disinterest from players going up there, especially with that Eric Lindros saga way back in 91. It was also that the arena was getting older, and they just didn't have the money to fund a new one. Canadian taxpayers, it's a very different way of thinking in Canada. Canadian taxpayers, they don't care how much they love the team. They will not fund a new arena. They won't. It just doesn't happen in Canada. It never has. It never will. So that's really why they left. It was a weakening Canadian dollar and a bad economy. And it just was pretty much, there was no salary cap. And in reality, what player in their mind would want to call Quebec home? At the same time, Quebec, you want to talk about French speaking, the worst kept secret in the league is, as much as Montreal says they're a French team, Montreal is a bilingual city. It's a French and English city. It's majority French, yes, but there's pockets of Montreal where you go and it's the neighborhoods are all English speaking. There's a very many neighborhoods there. It would be really a true French speaking team. Now, do they return? I don't know. I don't think Hamilton will ever get a team. Reason being is you have the richest hockey team in the world in the Toronto Maple Leafs, literally an hour up the QEW. And you have the Buffalo Sabres, who are right down Lake Erie there. And believe it or not, the Buffalo Sabres attract a lot of fans from Hamilton. A lot of fans come down and come over the bridge to go to the Buffalo games. I don't think that the league would go to Houston right now. It just doesn't make sense with the failures in Florida and the failures in Arizona. I just can't see them going back to the Southern United States. It doesn't make sense. I think Portland would still be a viable option, but that's really up in the air. I think the thing with Portland is this. I think Portland would be a great hockey town. I do. Portland is a hockey town. Portland had a pro team back 100 years ago, when the Seattle Metropolitans, the first American team to ever win the Stanley Cup, won their Stanley Cup. Their biggest rival was the Portland Rosebuds. I think it would be great. And for our MLS people out there, and Bob and Alex can attest to this, that Cascadia rivalry between Seattle Sounders, Portland Timbers, and Vancouver Whitecaps is really some intense stuff. If you guys are ever looking for a soccer game to watch and you see a Seattle versus Portland or Portland versus Vancouver, Seattle versus Vancouver, vice versa, see those games on, man, it's intense. The crowds are intense. But I think the problem with Portland is this. The league realized back in the 90s that they expanded into Florida entirely too fast. Phil Esposito, NHL legend, owner of the Tampa Bay Lightning, said it best. He said the league came into Florida, in South Florida, too quick. They didn't give us enough time to get our brand in. And obviously, Seattle and Portland are not Miami and Tampa Bay. Seattle and Portland are cities with a rich hockey heritage. But at the same time, I think that they have in the back of their mind that we did it once where we went into an area too quickly and it didn't work out as well as we thought it was going to work out. So I can't see Portland right now having a team either. So I just feel like if you are going to relocate the Arizona Coyotes, because this is what it's looking like, and like I'm going to harken back to what I said before, and I know I sound like a broken record, but all signs are pointing to the Arizona Coyotes no longer playing there next year. And I just think right now, that Quebec is the obvious option. Another thing with Hamilton, and before I turn over to you, Brian, Hamilton's arena, the Cops Coliseum, is ancient. The place is old. If you ever watched that Wayne Gretzky to Mario Lemieux, that beautiful goal in the 87 Canada Cup, arena going nuts, that's Cops Coliseum in Hamilton, Ontario. That's how old that arena is. That arena is close to 50 years old. I can't see them going there when Quebec has a brand new arena to go into. So, yeah, I think right now, if Arizona can't hammer their problems out, I think that we do see the return of the Quebec Nordiques next year. I think we do. And for all the proponents of wanting to keep it the same as it was last year, in terms of these regional divisions and having an all-Canadian division, well, there's your 8th team right there in the Canadian division. If it was to ever go back to that, there's your 8th team.
Anything is certainly possible, and I think it is entirely possible that we get another team in Quebec City, whether it's the Nordiques or whether it's somebody else. But I also really feel like there are better options to try for relocation first. I mean, Hamilton would be a great town and has been a proven hockey town in general, if you want to stick on the Canadian side of things. Portland is a hockey town, as Tom mentioned before. Houston could even be a potentially decent market as well. You've already got the Dallas Stars, and the Dallas Stars have kind of proven to be successful there. And adding a team in Houston could actually create a really interesting divisional rival for the Dallas Stars, to be quite honest, and maybe even move into that Central Division and not have to kind of stir things up a little bit, amongst the divisions. Like if you're going to add a team in Quebec, you kind of have to shake up the divisions again. But adding a team like in Houston, you don't really need to shake things up because you can just slap them in where Arizona currently is in the Central Division. So it wouldn't really ruffle the feathers too much in that regard. But guys, as always, what do you guys think? Do you agree? Do you disagree with our takes? You got to let us know down below in the comments section. And also while you're there, like and subscribe for all of the content we've got coming up. And in case you're not on YouTube, here's our YouTube page down below, youtube.com/i80 sports. Make sure you subscribe and make sure you drop a like and comment on this video as well. But you can also find our content down below on i80sports.com. Not only can you find our NHL content, but you can also find our NFL, MLS, NCAA football, and NBA content there as well. And hey, 'tis the season of giving. Make sure you hit up our shop, get yourself a t-shirt as low as $8. And if you're on Twitter, make sure you follow us down below at i80_sportsNHL. And if you're already currently following, thank you guys so much because we greatly value all of your support. Without you guys, we can't do this on a weekly basis. But it's time to stop talking for a little while. It's time to start watching some NHL games. Make sure that you guys are watching out there. Make sure that you're supporting your teams. And as always, guys, I'm Brian. He's Tom. This has been yet another episode of NHL on i80 Sports.